Hey everybody. Hey everybody. It's
And
Kyle
it's
here.
Christina.
Yes, Marthe
And this is the
Marie.
CP Yes, thank you for joining us. This is the CP Chronicles and we are thankful to have Marthe Marie here with us from South Africa. 7-hour time difference. So it is 10 o'clock where she's at. So thank you for staying up late to join us today. We really
Pleasure,
appreciate it.
pleasure, pleasure.
Would you mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Okay, my name is Marthe Marie. I live in the Roodepoort, Johannesburg, South Africa, and I'm an adult with hemiplegia cerebral palsy since birth. But that hasn't stopped me to live a full life. Yeah, I believe, you know what, I see each challenge as an opportunity, and it helps me at the end of the day to achieve my goals. So that's
I love
basically how
that
I see
attitude.
it.
That's a
That's
really great
awesome.
attitude to have.
You have to, otherwise you won't, otherwise you're going to create barriers for yourself, basically. So, yeah.
And we already know that society creates barriers for us anyway.
Yes,
So
yeah,
if we
yeah,
add to that, we're really doing
yeah,
ourselves a disservice.
yeah. But what I also want to add is basically, I found that because I've got an organization, Abilities Without Limits as well, I just saw the need to, educate people and raise an awareness, especially about cerebral palsy. So that's why I like what you guys are also doing, because you're doing similar work as well. And I found there are people that do understand, there are people that don't understand, and there are people that just don't care. And
Yeah.
then there are people that have actually got a fear that approach you and they say they don't know how to deal with people with the disabilities and they want to learn how to do it. And that's where we come in as Abilities Without Limits, basically to assist them and guide them how to do it. Because that's good. I mean, that they acknowledge from their side that they've got a fear doing it or how to
Yeah,
approach it, basically.
Yeah, there is a fear of what people don't
Yeah,
understand. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
they don't know how to
And
deal with it, and the more that we can help them, the less fear there is.
yeah, and there might be people, as I said, that don't care, but somewhere along the line, the penny is going to drop somewhere. Something might happen to the relative or friend of them, or they'll meet somebody with something similar like cerebral palsy, and then they'll remember that we spoke about it. So I believe they will. It's important to get the word out there to everybody, basically. Yeah.
Definitely. I think everybody at some point is going to come across somebody with a disability. So
Yes.
the more we know about it, the better off we are.
But
how long
what
have you started Abilities Without Limits?
Abilities Without Limits, I started in, actually, it will now be the 13th of August, 2021. It will be 2 years. Yeah, 2 years.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah. I never knew, basically, sorry. I always knew I wanted to create awareness, but I didn't want people to feel sorry for me when I shared my journey, because you don't want that sympathy, but you want that understanding. So
Mhm.
I approach it from where I realized that I had to embrace my package. Not embrace in a way that I didn't accept my disability, but I had to learn more about my disability.
Hmm.
Like, for example, me, I don't know about you guys, but well, I would like if you can share it with me. But like with me, I'm hemiplegia cerebral palsy. So when I close my right hand, my left hand also wants to do the same. So I call it like copycat. And
Oh,
for me to explain it to other people, how am I going to explain cerebral palsy? What is cerebral palsy? I
Hmm.
can't explain it if I don't know my own package. So yeah,
Right.
that was quite a journey to get to that stage. I'm still
yeah.
learning every day, but yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
never.
we're all
Go ahead.
always learning to some degree. And I totally agree. Understanding how it affects you and why it affects you is going to help you to be able to explain it better to other people. Um,
Exactly.
that resonates with me as well. I guess I'll make a blanket statement here and say that Kyle and I are both spastic diplegic, which means that our muscles are very tight. And the main things affected are our legs, However, that doesn't mean that we don't have trouble doing, fine motor tasks with our hands. For example, for me, I sometimes have a little bit of fun in the kitchen and make some messes because I'm not very good at, cutting things. But yeah, we have that similarity in that our legs are primarily the thing affected. But I can kind of understand the wanting to do things the same. I know, like with my lower body, some of the things I'm doing in physical therapy, like if one hip kind of swings one way, like my other leg wants to go too. And especially when I first started in physical therapy, it was really hard for me to separate. Like if you ask me, like, okay, put this leg in this direction and this leg in the other direction, I couldn't. They both wanted to go up, or they both wanted to go down. I couldn't separate.
Hard to separate the two, and that's something I had to learn in physical therapy as well. It's how to isolate, because and my head would want to go wherever I was going to. It was always like, keep your head up straight and try to go slower because it helps you isolate, because it's kind of an all or nothing. Right. It used to be an all or nothing.
But you find that the physical therapy helps you at the end of the day. And with time, with stuff that you struggled, it becomes a bit easier. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay. You have to actually put in the work, though, for physical therapy to do what it's supposed to do. You can't enter physical therapy thinking, well, the physical therapist is going to do all the work and then I'm going to make progress. The majority of the work done is by you at home. They are there to guide you in what is appropriate and what's effective, but it is up to the patient themselves to put in the work, not only at, during treatment while you're there with your therapist, but at home. I always said a good 80% of the work was done at home as opposed to seeing my actual therapist. And they could tell that I was putting in the work because I could make progress within a week. But if you don't put in the work at home, your progress is going to be very slow. And that's going to be very discouraging too, I think, because we're all about progress. And when you see progress, it makes you want to keep going. But when you don't see any, you think, well, this isn't working. It's not worth my time. Well, it's not working because you get in what you get out what you put in, so to speak.
Exactly. And the thing with the CP muscles, like I call myself an all sorts package because my right side is able-bodied and non-disabled, and my left side is this disabled side. So I can see it from the non-disabled side and from disabled side, both sides. But when it comes like to physio and the exercises, I know that I have to give my CP side time to recover. And it will take time to get stronger because I know what this side can do. It can do it much quicker. So this side also wants to do it quick, but it can't. And sometimes it can become a bit frustrating because I know my right side can do it quick. Then I know my left side, listen, okay, it wants to do it quick, but it's backtracking because it's going into spasms. And their muscles are putting together. So that's quite a challenge. I mean, if I type quite a fast speed. I mean, when I left school many years ago, I went to college, and one of the challenges I had was the colleges declined my application because they wanted me to type with both hands, which was quite challenging for me, impossible. And eventually there was a college that accepted my application, and I ended up typing a typing speed of 45 words per minute. But I literally, because whatever my right hand does, my left hand wants to do, I have to put my left hand under, especially if I type fast, literally under my bum and type. Otherwise, this hand is going to be up in the air while I'm typing. So you have to compromise, adapt, and survive. You get ways to do things,
Yeah, it's learning about what.
And if, by the end of the day, when I'm done with my work, it's not my right arm that's sore, but my left arm.
Right.
So yeah. So it works quite funny.
Well, I did want to ask you, because you had contacted me about after our employment episode about how in South Africa you don't fit the disability quota spots because they don't see you as disabled enough. And I was just like, wow, like we're gonna really do that, you know, like you have a disability,
Yes.
like there is no one look of a disability, and we need to get rid of that. But
Yeah.
how has your employment experience been with that?
What I found with me is I call myself also a borderline case because, like an invisible disability, people want, well, they say when I talk to them and they tell me that, listen, but you don't look disabled. Or what disability do you have? Because your disability is not that severe. People tend to want to see that you're disabled, especially in the working place. So they'll either appoint a person that's maybe walking with crutches or in a wheelchair. So what happened to me is when I applied for the employment equity jobs, yeah, basically that is what they told me. And I ended up, that was many years ago. Maybe it has changed, but over the years I just decided not to apply for it because every time they would tell me, listen, but they tried to do it in a very polite way, saying, but they actually want to see that the person is disabled. So then I would say, like, okay, but can't they see that I'm disabled?
And
But
that's
yeah,
bad because, like we said, disability doesn't really have a look. There's so many different types, but I think people just think of the stereotype, and that is what they're wanting you to fit. And it's unfortunate. I mean,
yeah. So I ended up just applying for the non-disabled jobs, just hoping that they would see me, Marthe Marie, with potential, you know, and see what I'm capable of doing. And I think it's got a lot to do with the way that my parents raised me, because I was never raised as a disabled child, but rather as a child with a disability. And there's a huge difference. People see you comfortable with who you are and content with who you are, you know, you're gonna sort of, they'll feel comfortable being in your presence basically, and they'll see that you're comfortable. Okay, you're disabled, but it seems like you're comfortable with your whole package.
right.
Then you're more approachable, if it makes sense what I'm saying. So yeah, and I think
Was
that's
that
how I
hard? Was that hard? You know, hearing, well, we don't think you're disabled enough, but did you ever feel discouraged applying for the regular jobs and then them kind of looking down at you for being disabled at all? Was that difficult to juggle of being like, well, I am disabled and I have these needs and accommodations, but you don't see me as disabled enough for the disabled job? Was that frustrating or difficult to navigate?
Yes, it was, because at some stages I felt, okay, where do I fit in? Because I'm not able enough, but I'm also not disabled enough. So where do I fit in? So I had a choice. I say either I would sulk and sink or smile and swim. So I chose the latter, because if I had to feel depressed about it, you know, I wouldn't have been able to continue with my life and continue to work and get a job. So that's basically how I dealt with it. But yeah, that's not easy.
No, it doesn't sound easy at all. But I think one of the things that those with disabilities are good at doing is adapting. I think
Yeah.
we just have to adapt sometimes, and it's not easy, but we do it, and we hope that we end up in a better spot for sticking it out, so to speak, as we say, and just doing what you have to do.
That's true,
Yeah.
because, you know, if a person asks me if I wish I didn't have a disability, I wouldn't change it. I'm thankful for my disability, because you know what? Every day we're on that journey of the unknown. And yeah, we never know what's going to happen the next day. And, you know, I see obstacles are the frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goals. So you have to focus on your goals. That's the only way you're going to get through it.
Well, I love that quote.
And at the end of the day, you know, you become a stronger person. You might have a situation where, you know, something is very difficult. You don't know how to deal with it, but then you went through something difficult, more difficult previously, and that next hurdle is just something you have to get through, basically. So whatever you're going through now that's very bad prepares you for the next hurdle that might not be so bad.
That's very
true. Yeah.
Learning experience. I just want to take the moment to say hi to everyone on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. Thank you on letgoradio.net for listening as well. If you have any questions for Marthe, please feel free. I know Marie is here. When she found out you were going to be on our show, she was
hey,
super excited.
We got
Marie
here, Lena, Donna's here. Thanks for watching, everybody. My mom is actually here. Oh, and Shayna's here.
Okay, awesome.
And Cindy.
No, you guys have a great show. I really enjoy your show. It's very valuable as well. Oh. And you know what? I just want to tell you guys, go on with what you're doing, because I believe, we're not enough people educating people out there. I mean, we all do it in a different way, and we all reach different people in our area. We can't be everywhere. So we're all getting the message out there, which is a good thing, yeah.
That's so right. Everybody has their audience,
Yeah.
And depending on where we live, we're not going to reach everybody, but if we all work together, we can reach more people.
And it's so nice to connect with you guys globally. It's like one step at a time, and I believe, taking that step, creating the place and the space for acceptance and inclusion, definitely.
Yeah, I hope that our watchers and listeners can see that they can make a difference, and that's what I really want, or that's what I love about this show in general with all of our guests and everyone that comes on, is that we show that you can make a difference, and it does spread rather quickly now because of social media and StreamYard and Zoom, and you can reach many more people than you think you can.
Absolutely. And one story I want to share, especially with people out there that don't know how to communicate with a person with a disability. One of the things I want to mention, I attended a bocce game. I don't know if you guys are familiar with bocce. For those with disabilities, it's similar to bowls. They've just got a slide. It's very interesting. They've got a small soft ball, then they either push it with their hand, or they've got a head stick and they push it with the head stick down, and then the ball has to end up closest to the white ball. And I attended an exercise one day. They had an exercise afternoon with the bocce, and this mom was sitting there with a child. It's an adult guy. And I said, hello, and he didn't respond. And so I gathered, he's got some speech challenges. So I asked the mom, but how does he communicate? So she explained to me. And after the conversation, when I told her, thank you for sharing with me, I told her, but I'm sure you know what? He understands each word that we discussed now. I wish you could see his face. It lit up, his eyes just lit up, and he had this smile. And he had a conversation with me, without having a conversation. That's why I tell people, listen with your soul and see with your heart.
Yeah, I'm sure it did have to light up just for him to know that you could communicate, because communication is everything. Being able to express yourself, whether it be verbally, not, however you choose to express yourself, you need to be able to. And finding people that can understand you and communicate with you is just freeing to know, I can say what I need to say and share what I need to share. So.
Right, and I think another important thing too is everybody communicates in a different way, but some people need longer to get their thoughts out, and I think that it's so great that you took the time to say, how does this person communicate? How can I communicate with them? Because a problem that a lot of people have is that they're too impatient to wait and figure it out. But then for the person that's sitting there or standing there, or, that they're like, oh, so you're not going to try to get to know me? You're not going to give me the time to, and it just is it's a disrespect to the person, and it's a missed opportunity to learn something about different ways to communicate.
Yeah, and then, if you get parents, they say, for example, they maybe have a child that goes with them, and they pass a person in a wheelchair, or they pass a person with the speech challenges, and the parent might say, not all parents, but some. I just want to emphasize on that as well. And they might pull the child away or say, "Shush," that child is going to associate it with shame. That's causing a barrier and a stigma, and that's what we don't want. We need to break down that stigma. There is a way to communicate. Ask the parents, if you see a child with a disability or adult with a disability, ask the carer or the parent, how do you communicate with them? They'll explain to And if you don't understand what the person with the speech challenges say, ask them to repeat the sentence, because they'll appreciate it, because they'll see that you acknowledge them as a person, and you don't just see their disability, basically. And yes, you might not be in the same boat as a family with a disabled adult or child, but they can help them to row the boat.
Yeah, if we can get especially children to associate communicating with those with disabilities as a positive experience, like they are the future. So the more we can get children curious about disability and wanting to ask in the right way, then that's what's going to, really create a better way of surrounding disability with positivity rather than these negative stigmas that media and just people in general kind of perpetuate.
Yes,
So
yes.
don't be afraid to ask.
Of course not. And you know it, Carl. You know what? The best way to showcase what disabled people are capable of doing. We all know the Paralympics is around the corner, so I would like to invite people to go and watch the Paralympics. Then they'll see what those people are capable of.
Right.
Definitely, because the Olympics is huge, and then I feel like the Paralympics doesn't get as nearly as enough recognition. It's directly after the Olympics. And people just don't seem to care as much, but they are athletes. They are brilliant athletes.
Right.
The media exposure, I must say, is much better than 20 years ago. Every 4 years, I must say, it improves, but it's not nearly as where it should be in terms of media coverage as well. Because if you go and watch on the TV, there's much more about the Olympics than the Paralympics.
Right.
And yeah, I really think, I hope on this year's Paralympics I'll get more media exposure. I hope so.
Well, I'll definitely make sure I watch now, because I have in the past, and I usually catch some of it. But I think, I think I owe it to the disabled community to really, really tune into that this year, and get to know some of those athletes too.
Yeah. And you know what? Really, if you watch the Paralympics, that's truly the triumph. Not that I'm saying the Olympics are not, but if you look at what the athletes at the Paralympics had to go through to get where they are today, it's really an example of triumph of the human spirit. Because I believe mentally they're so much stronger than anybody else, because that they've got so many setbacks and obstacles to overcome to achieve what they've achieved to be at the Paralympics, basically.
Marie has a that says, in the USA, when it's Disability Month, you don't hear anything about it. Yeah.
That's scary. And is it this month, Disability Pride Month?
Yes, I was just going to mention that July is Disability Pride Month.
Is that only in the USA, or is that like global? It's the first time I hear about it, basically.
I think it might just be a US thing, because I know they have World CP Day in October.
Okay.
But yes. We need to make it a global thing, I think.
Of course, yeah.
Definitely,
yeah.
It's all about progress.
It
we know that there's work to be done, but we have made progress, and we are going to continue to make progress. But the more people that use their voices, it helps, speed things along, as
Yeah, and I'm all for another excuse to talk about, you know, CP and other disabilities and advocate. Like, I think the more of these days of awareness we can have, the more people are going to see it. You know, maybe there's an ad on TV or an ad on Facebook, and they're going to go, "What's this?" And they're going to go, "Oh," and it's going to make them aware, you know, of some of these awareness days that we have. I did want to say too, right now, and it might be because it's Disability Pride Month, I'm not sure, but right now I'm participating in a challenge for the Cerebral Palsy Alliance Research Foundation, and it's to walk 33 miles in the month of July.
Okay.
So and the statistic is that 33% of people, so essentially 1 in 3, with cerebral palsy do not walk unaided.
Sure.
Are not able to walk. So the idea is you're walking your 33 miles for that 33% of people that are not able to walk. And that was something I'd never heard of the challenge. I'd never seen anything on it before, but I think I've signed up for enough virtual walks in the last year that it just happened to come up on my Facebook, and I was like, I've got to check this out. And and so I get in this Facebook group, and then there's hundreds of other people around the US that are also doing this challenge. And I just thought, wow, this is so cool. This is something I wasn't aware of. And now here it is, and it's a way for people to spread awareness. There are people on that page that have said, I don't know anybody with CP, but I saw this and I started reading about it, and I thought, yeah, I can do 33 miles. You know, so I thought that was really cool. Like, yes, a lot of these people are have family members with CP and are walking. Oh, I'm walking to support my daughter, or I'm walking to support my niece. I'm walking to support my nephew. But to hear that there were actually people that said, I don't know what CP is, but after reading about it, I want to support. I was like, hey, that's exactly why we do like this. You know, that's why we keep reaching out.
Yeah. Sometimes, spreading awareness and just getting involved is finding the right platform, whether that be the virtual mission or YouTube or radio shows like this, or, organizations like Abilities Without Limits. Like, it's just finding the right, piece of the puzzle, and then it opens up a whole new world into, sharing what disability really is like.
Marie answered our question. She says it's only here in the U.S. because in July of 1990, Bush signed the ADA Act. Okay. So that.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Marie. For history facts there. That's what the movie Crip Camp talks all about. If you ever seen Crip Camp on Netflix.
I've heard about it. I haven't watched, to be honest, but I've heard about it. That's on my bucket list to watch as well.
Yeah,
it is worth it.
And it really illustrates, at least in the U.S., the struggle that people with disabilities had, years and years and years to be recognized and get the accommodations that they needed to be productive members of society.
Yeah. We're talking about. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But I must say, I think, we've also got our challenges here in South Africa in terms of disability. I think it's a global problem, but I think overseas, I think in some countries, it's much more advanced or much more better for those with disabilities. Like in South Africa, we're not there, I think, as yet. Because majority of those with disabilities, we have to work. We don't get like a allowance payment or insurance payment or that kind of thing. Yes, there are some of them, they do get like a disability grant, but it's not no, you can't. I mean, I'm blessed because I can work. I work a full-time. I do work at a place where I can work full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And I earn a salary. But then some of them, they can't work because physically it's not possible for them. So their families have to look after them. And sometimes, the finances are just very tight because they have to get medical aid, they have to get the wheelchair, they have to get a caretaker. No, and the need, there's such a big need out there. And that's the whole thing with abilities as well. We're actually we're actually busy with our website design at the moment, and and we've got the bank account as well. So we'll hopefully we'll have a barcode also up and running, so where people can just take their cell phones and they can scan, they can make a donation just for us to help people out there with some assistive devices, even if we can assist with a portion of the payment,
Right.
That's also, apart from educating and raising awareness, it's also we're trying to raise funds to help people out there, especially, with cerebral palsy. It's not limited to, but especially with cerebral palsy, to help those parents with assistive devices for their children. Because what happens is those children, obviously, as CP kids become CP adults.
Right.
And I know where I'm struggling as an adult. I'm sure you guys can also relate. So if they've got the right assistive devices, whether it's the physical device or whether it's going for OT or physiotherapy, just to help them, to give them a better quality of life,
Right.
That's already a step in the right direction, basically.
I think
you
that's
brought up a really good point that those with disabilities can lead, full lives, but support, if you don't have the right support, sometimes your potential can fall short of what you're actually capable of. So
true.
It does make me grateful that I do have the support system that I do, because
I don't know about you guys, but I found specifically in South Africa, and I'm getting the word out there. If people know, or if they've got more information, they can share it with us. But at this stage, it seems like there are only a multidisciplinary medical team for children with cerebral palsy in South Africa, and not for adults. So I'm putting the word out there. If there's a multidisciplinary team for adults with cerebral palsy in South Africa, they're more than welcome to contact us, because it doesn't seem like there are. So what happens with the adults? Because CP kids become CP adults.
It's
treatment.
We've had that issue here in the US as well, because early detection is the thing. You want to find it early, you want to diagnose it, you want to treat it. I think that's part of the reason why those of us in the US have the same problem as adults, because it's like, let's support the kids, but then, like, for me, for example, my doctor was, one of the best in the area, but he only treated you up until you were 18.
That's the thing.
And then when you turned 18, he's like, well, you're too old for me now, so I'm just going to refer you to this other doctor, somebody I didn't know, and then you go to that doctor and they're like, do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns? And it's like, well, I know you're a doctor, but I don't know you. And it's like you start all over again, building that relationship with a doctor who you're going to trust, with your care down the road. And I think after probably like my third or fourth appointment with that doctor, I finally felt like okay, we, like, some things about me and we get along, and I ask her some things, and she was joking around because she thinks I walk pretty fast, and she wouldn't want to go on any virtual walks with me because I walk too fast, but it takes time to build those support relationships. And I really think we do adults a disservice when we just like give them another doctor and like, okay, here you go. And then,
my doctor was someone who saw both children and adults. But then when I turned 26 and was kicked off of my parents' insurance, because here in the US you have 26 as long as your parents can cover you. Well, then that doctor no longer accepted the insurance that I was able to get. So I don't technically have a cerebral palsy doctor. I do have a primary care physician, but they aren't as well, they kind of know nothing about cerebral palsy. That's not an insult to their intelligence. That's just that's not what they specialize in.
Right,
So,
they don't specialize in that.
So it is a little like, ooh, like if I do need something, I did have to go back to physical therapy, and it has worked out for me thus far. But, I might need a doctor that specializes in CP, and that's going to be scary starting all over. Being like, and I see Kristina's mother said exactly this. Why are you here? And that's how I'm going to feel. Like, yeah,
that's kind of what my doctor said at my first appointment. It was, why do you need to be seen? Because she knew that I was a new patient. But I feel like as an adult here in the U.S., if you have CP, you're going to the doctor because you have some kind of a problem, like because something's going on that you need to fix. And I'm just here like, no, I was referred from my, pediatric doctor that works with children. I'm here because I need to get established with you so that if I have a problem, I have a doctor to go to.
Exactly. That's got a background, yeah.
But then it becomes kind of terrible that we only want people to come to the doctor when there's a problem, because if we're not going regularly to the doctor, there could be a problem that we don't realize until, say I only go to the doctor every 2 years because they don't think they need to see me any more frequently. Well, in 2 years, a lot can happen.
Exactly. Now, I can share a story with you guys. What happened to me is, I'm sure you'll be able to relate as well, because us with specifically cerebral palsy, I speak more about that because I know about the spasms and muscle stiffness, especially in winter time. It tends to be more painful, and so it was about 5 years ago. I had a severe neck and back spasms, and I thought, what? It was a cold winter, maybe it's that, and I drank my Nurofen and just used the oils in the essential oils in the bath, and I used my beanbag and everything, so nothing worked. So the one morning, I drove to work. We'll talk about the driving just now. I drove to work, and but I was like jerking, and I couldn't understand what is going on with me, because whenever a car passed me, and I was like, everything just jerked, and so eventually a few weeks after that, my leg started to feel lame. So that's when I knew something is not kosher. And we've got a very high pain threshold, which is not our fault. It's part of our package, And so I went to physio, and she treated me. And the next day, I actually had a full spasm in my glute and my left side. And she treated me, and the next day it was back. And she said no, because she's been treating me for 8 years. And I'm thankful because she specializes specifically in cerebral palsy as well.
Wow.
So she knows my whole package. And about 3 days after that, I couldn't lift my left leg. And we couldn't, figure out what was going on. So eventually they admitted me in hospital. So, but it took me about 3 to 4 weeks before they could admit me, because I had to find a neurologist to first see me, first go through all the checks and the tests and everything. And I was in the hospital for a week. And then after about 4 or 5 tests, they discovered it's 2 of the discs in my back that slipped. So the one slipped 20% and the other one 50%. And that's a problem with CP, because as you get older as well, and if you don't exercise, it's not only not exercising, but your posture changes as you age as well. And so my lower back got a bit weaker. That's why it slipped as well. But we picked it up too late, which is not my fault. It's just because, we've got a high pain threshold. So you don't feel that stuff.
And
And
sometimes you just chalk it up as CP. It's normal. It's normal.
yeah,
And then
because mine happened right in winter time. So I thought, it's normal. I don't want to make because if you tell a person you've got pain, they're going to say, oh, they've also got pain. But it's not the same pain.
Right, right.
CP pain is not the same pain because it's spasm pain. Spasm pain, you it just doesn't know how to switch off.
Yeah.
And they mentioned to me they might have to operate. So both me and my physio knew that was a no-no for me. And they did what they call the old school treatment. It's the physio and the swimming and the medication, everything. And one thing I want to emphasize, when the physio tells you to do that and your neurosurgeon tells you to do that, do it because they know what they're talking about. So just because I listened to them and followed the exact medication and exercise and stuff they gave me to do, I recovered, but it basically took me 2 to 3 years to recover. So, and it was difficult to find a doctor because, as I said, it took me about 3 to 4 weeks to get to a doctor. And initially, I didn't know who to go to.
Right.
And that's the thing, because every time I phoned a practice, they would tell me, oh, sorry, we only see CP kids, not CP adults. So where must I go? So that's when I discovered, that was in 2015, 2016, I realized, but listen, well, what now? Because it seems like there's only provision made for CP kids and not CP adults.
Yeah, they definitely need to put more focus on adults because
Yeah.
kids grow and then we're adults and then they just kind of let us go and to our own devices, and then we, like you said, we don't always realize there's a problem till it's too late. And
Yeah. Look, some CP people, it seems like, I'm not saying they mustn't go to other people or physicians or physios, because some of them can go to them and they seem fine. But in my specific case, no, I have to see a person that specializes, especially for cerebral palsy muscles, because I've been to a physio that said they do treat people with cerebral palsy, and I was much worse off because they didn't actually specialize in that field.
Right.
And it's important because as a child, you get fixed. You're fine, but as an adult, you still need to be maintained.
Right.
Because otherwise, you get what they call, I think it's post impairment, where you get all that muscle pain and neck pain and back pain, and you deteriorate because you're not getting that treatment isn't there.
Right. Getting what you need to stay loose and stay mobile and active. And I know I can speak from experience with, like I've had problems with my knee, I've had problems with my back, I'm now currently having problems with my hip, but it's all connected. And I think, the more we can advocate for ourselves to find someone who truly understands our condition, the more effective our treatment is going to be, because they're going to understand how some of the muscle tightness can work against you and what can be done about it to help, make those with CP more mobile and hopefully make them so that they're in less pain.
Yeah, it definitely has to be the right fit. Like you said,
absolutely.
It has to be the right team to really get you to where you need to go. I do see we have a couple of comments from Donna and Lena that are important.
Yeah, so Donna says part of her job is to do trainings with people without disabilities. The people try different things, a wheelchair or crutches, so that they have some understanding of what it's like to have a disability. Wow, that's really
okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
We need more of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Even just a little bit of a taste is better than nothing.
I think my sister's only experience with that was probably when I was going to have surgery. We rented a wheelchair, and she sped around in the wheelchair in the front yard, trying it out, steering, popping wheelies and all that. But I don't think, I I still don't think it gives you a super accurate representation of what it's like, but at least
No,
maybe,
no.
like in her case, I think it was more of a fun thing just for the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
So when you realize, like, yeah, this is me in this all the time, I don't think people would find it as enjoyable. You know, they would appreciate more the things that they can do if they
Yeah,
really
yeah.
if they really knew what some of it was like.
Yeah. But you know what? Last year, in lockdown, I think it was about May or June. Again in the winter time, I had this neck pain, and I thought, oh my goodness, I think so I drank my baclofen. So since I had my backstory, that's where I got my first introduction to spasm tablets, because I've never been on spasm tablets my whole life. So that was quite a thing to adapt to, and but yeah, so last year I took my baclofen tablets and pain tablets, and I grabbed my beanbag as well, warmed it up in the microwave, and so the pain kept on for another about 2 weeks. So I went for the physio session. Also the same story, the pain came back. So, but then we knew from the experience with the back, if the treatment didn't work for the neck, then obviously something else is going on. So luckily I had my neurosurgeon that I've been to, so I made an appointment, and then they discovered 2 of the discs in my neck slipped. Now, we also they wanted to give me injection, but now they said, my physician said, you know what, they can't actually inject you. You know what's going to happen? The needles are going to break because it will go into spasm. The moment you go to those CP muscles, it's going to go stiff, and the needle can break or something.
Yeah,
So
sometimes our bodies really work against us.
Yeah.
Create
And luckily we caught it in time, and yeah, again I went for physio, I got medical treatment and that kind of thing, and yeah, I'm fine. No operation was needed. I always have got a guardian angel, so
Yeah, anytime we can avoid
That's
surgery,
yeah,
knock on wood.
yeah.
I
So
have had a similar experience with I was never on any kind of medication or anything, and I'm not on baclofen, but I'm on, it's called Flexeril, and it's a muscle relaxer. It's an anti-spasm medication as well,
okay.
that I take in the evenings, and it's not the same as baclofen, but it does the same type of thing. And that was
Yeah.
something that I was, I never wanted to be on it. Well, but I also had never had back pain like that before. And
Yeah.
at that point, when the doctor's like, let's get you on something, I was like, give me all of the medication. All of it. I want to feel better. Like at that point, I wasn't anti-medication because I was like, if it's going to help me feel better, I'm going
Yeah.
to do it, and
I'm also like that, especially now in the winter time, because the winter time I know, because it's like the cold is creeping into your muscles. Then my neurosurgeon knows. I phone him for a script and he gives it to me. But I try, since my backstory is I try to exercise as much as possible at the gym. I do like on the rowing machine, and I started with a bit of light weights. And then I also close by home, we've got stairs. It's called Westcliff Stairs. So it's quite a bit of stairs up and down. So I've done it for CP World as well, raising awareness. But I'm actually planning to do it tomorrow. So actually, I think I must do it for Disability Pride. I think that's going to be a nice idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I see your fitness journey on Facebook. You kill it. But
yeah, it's hard work, but I enjoy it. So yeah, I have to do it.
It's
Sometimes you don't feel like it, but you have to.
no, it's great. That's a great. I mean, just keeping your strength up is important because having more strength and stability is a way to kind of help us to fight against the CP. Like, the CP is always going to be there, but the stronger we are, the less likely I feel like it's going to take over, if that makes sense, because we're doing something to make sure that we're going to stay active and we're going to stay mobile, that we're able to keep moving.
Yeah, no, definitely.
mobility is key.
Lena has a comment here for us. She says that she is educating her doctor too. She says, since I'm going through the process of a new power chair, I'm finding that I'm educating my doctor because she isn't aware of CP until now. She's like in shock. I wish people would be aware of what we deal with on a daily basis. Wow.
You see, that's where I think there's a huge lack when the people study medicine. I don't even think, it's my opinion. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when they study medicine, they should, give the people more information and practical experience when it comes to people with disabilities.
Definitely.
It's more theory than anything else. So when you come to the practical, I've been to hospitals and I tell them, no, but you can't put the needle on my left arm. Why not? I've got cerebral palsy. What's that? They don't know. So that's a bit scary.
Well, during my time in physical therapy in 2020, I had a student learner with my physical therapist, and she had just come from a class about CP. So she was all about it. Like, it was really fresh in her mind. She had a lot of new exercises to try, and it was just like, yes, we need to see more people who have this knowledge of CP. Because she said her professor was like, these kids grow up, and they specifically like hammered that home, that like it changes as they get older, and they're gonna need help. And so she was very good for me of just getting the two perspectives, someone who had been doing it a little bit longer and someone who was fresh, just had the course of all these ideas. It really helped me, figure out what worked best for me to get to where I am now. So the more people know about disabilities, the better they can help, because they want to help, but if they don't know how to help, then it's like, well, then the search continues.
Right.
Yeah.
The misconceptions also about CP, people say that it's non-progressive. Non-progressive meaning the brain damage that caused the CP isn't going to get any worse. But people misunderstand that for the condition or the symptoms can't get any worse, and they can. Like, that's
physically, definitely.
That's why we need access to things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, and doctors that know about CP, because we have to work to maintain the level of physical ability that we have. If we stop working on it, the CP is going to keep intervening, and muscles are tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's going to make things worse. We have to keep working to maintain, and I just think that's a misconception people have. Like, well, it's non-progressive. Okay, well, yes, the brain damage is there. Nothing's changing with that, but things can change if they are not managed.
And you know what I also found, and again I say, if people out there think I'm going on a thinking, my thoughts are not correct in my thought of thinking. When you've got sorry, I'm thinking Afrikaans now. I can't think. There are CP conferences out there as well in some of the countries. I'm not saying conferences where we talk about, like we do with the cerebral palsy talks every year, but like the doctors, they get together and they have talks about medical stuff and so forth relating to cerebral palsy, and they'll have discussions. They should have those people with cerebral palsy also at the conference, where they can share their experiences, because I found that some of them have said they don't always know what the child is going through because the child can't talk. But we, as adults, we are the manuals.
Right.
We can share our experiences. We can share what we've gone through. So that will give them an idea what that person might experience.
That's a really good point, that one are able to speak for those that can't.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that needs to happen.
Because, I mean, if they know of conferences where they had people with disabilities, cerebral palsy, talking there at the conference, yes, that's a good thing. But so far, all the talks I've seen, they've only had the doctors there and the professors there and the people in the medical field. But I haven't seen actual people with cerebral palsy at that conference where they shared the experiences. And I think it's important.
Because the people that live with it, have the most information, in my opinion.
That's the thing. Like if it's all about hemiplegia, I mean, then I can share. I can't share about diplegia because I might have an idea, but you'll have more knowledge about it because you are the adult with diplegia.
Right.
That's the whole thing. So, and that's just my thought of thinking. And I think
that there's supposed to be a university close to her, that they're all about OT and PT and looking for disabilities to work on. She said one time I went because they were studying CP.
Wow, that'd be
interesting.
Awesome.
So I think that's great, Marie, that you were able to go and be there and educate them from your experiences about that too.
Yeah. And I think it's important, especially, if not only that at the conferences, even when the students study medicine, and to get people with disabilities involved in the lecture classes, even if it's virtual, or on a webinar.
Awesome. There's so much being done virtually now. Why can't you have a guest in a class to talk about a disability?
Yes, yeah.
And Marie even got paid for it. Hey, even better.
Go get that money, Marie.
It's funny though, because Kyle and I kind of did the same thing. We, several months back, were invited by our university to speak in a class where they were learning about disabilities. So we went on and did this talk, but there was a bunch of students there from this one class that they were, they had questions for us and they were all prepared and everything. Like they were really...
Yeah, it was really cool.
It was really neat to see that the university thought of us, and we were flattered too that they thought of us, like, hey, you two went here, you have CP, come talk to these students and, give them an idea of what your experience is like.
Yeah.
So we kind of had it on that side of thing, but I think, the more of that we can have while people are still in school, get exposed to it and learn about it in school so that when you see it out in the world, when you're practicing, you're not surprised by it.
And there's two parts. I mean, educating especially children in the schools about those people with disabilities. So when they get to college after school, then they've got already that knowledge, of how to deal with a person with disability. And then, you give them more information, how to deal with a person when you're in the medical field, basically. I mean, if you in a hospital and they don't know how to lift you off the bed, or if I have to go to hospital and they put a drip in my right arm, I need somebody to feed me. Because I can't use my left hand, and that's sometimes that they don't understand that. And that's small things that's definitely important. I mean, I had a situation also in hospital where basically I fell asleep and the sister came to my bed. She didn't tell me, hi, Marthe Marie, are you okay? She just touched my arm and I nearly jumped off my bed because I got a fright.
I would jump too.
Yeah. Because obviously that's the way your body reacts. And just to educate the nurses, not just the medical doctors, but the nurses as well, because I also think they don't get all that information about disabilities, which is important. So
I'm like, if you're poking me with a needle, you better hold my arm down. Because
it's the same.
It's gonna jump, but then like with physical therapy, if we do dry needling or anything like that, like my physical therapist knows that I'm gonna spasm when she's prepared for that because she works with patients with CP all day long. But I think some other medical professionals are surprised when they poke you and you spasm and they go, "Did I scare you?" I go, "No, you didn't scare me. It's my muscles' reaction." It's
yeah.
I can't control it. I just know that it's coming, and apparently some doctors don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely true.
Lena
And
has a good comment here also. She says we have to continue to be our own advocates and educate others so that they can be more informed.
Yeah.
You know, and then those people can go on educating and so on. So
Yeah. It's important. And another thing, I mean, what I've also found from personal experience, if you tell a person with cerebral palsy not to get a fright, that's when they go, I'm going to get a fright, because why are you telling them?
Yeah, no,
Not to
that's
get a
very
fright.
true.
like I do appreciate the warning from people like, okay, this is going to be really loud, but that's not going to stop me from jumping. I'm still going to
Exactly. It's actually going to make it a bit worse, because now you know something is going to happen.
Now
but
I
you
know
don't
something's
when
going to
it's
happen, and now I've tensed up waiting for it. So now you're just going to make it worse. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're coming up on about an hour, but before we go, I want to discuss a little bit of driving with you, because I know you've been following my driving journey on Facebook, and I know that you were telling me that you have your license, but you don't always feel the most comfortable driving in certain situations. So that was very like reassuring to me that like you can get your license and still not exactly enjoy driving in all scenarios.
Yeah. No, it's true. But tell me, when did you drive for the first time, Carl? What made you
Um,
decide to drive?
quite a long time ago, I've had a kind of off and on relationship with driving. So it's been many years ago. I think I was I graduated high school 8 years ago. So when I started community college is when I first attempted. So over the last 8 years, after being told I shouldn't drive back in driver's ed because I wasn't ready, I've had a very off and on experience of like every time it's gotten a little better, but I still haven't quite gotten over the stress of driving. I haven't found it enjoyable. It just, I'm always on alert, and I don't, because you need to be.
Right,
But
but the only way to get through that is to do it more until you're comfortable. And I can speak from experience. I just needed to get in the car and go until I finally was comfortable enough with it to be like, okay, I'm fine now. Like I've done this a million times now, and you eventually, at least for me, you eventually relax because you know that you're able to do the right things, and you're not thinking about it so much. You're not overthinking it and worrying yourself when you don't need to, because you just
see, that's what I do. That's my problem right now.
That's
is that I overthink.
Need to push through. It will come.
And then if does it happen when you have to overtake a car or maybe turn right at a robot or something, that your timing, that kind of thing? Or?
A little bit, I think, of just like, I guess in my head, and I know this is bad, I'm always the one that's afraid that I'm going to be the one that causes the accident. So whenever I get around vehicles, I just get really like, it's going to be okay. I like take the turn. I know how to turn. I've done it many times, but it's still, because even my dad's like, you should like driving around other vehicles because that's your markers for things of like, you need to be this close to this vehicle. Because I'm always like, I like the side roads, but my dad's like, it's not that bad. Like, and actually, as of today, I think I'm gonna. My grandma is getting rid of her car, so I think I'm gonna have my grandpa's old car here soon. So I think that's gonna help me a little bit because I was very close with my grandpa, and he would drive past our house and honk and wave. So I think I have to take up the mantle. So
and tell me, is it an automatic car?
It is. I could not. Yes, I've never done.
Pretty much everybody I know drives an automatic transmission now. If you have a stick shift, a lot of people I know that have stick shifts, it's something they inherited from someone in the family that's been around for a while. I'm not saying you can't go out and buy a stick shift, but most cars that you buy on the market today here in the U.S. are going to be automatic, and the stick shift is something extra or special.
Okay, so but us in South Africa, it's a lot of the people what you call stick shift. I think it's It's like the manual car here in South Africa. They call
Yes.
it a manual car with all the gears. And like I drive the automatic. Many years ago when I got my license, I told myself I want to learn how to drive a manual car in case I have to drive in emergency. And I think I was about 25, 26. Yeah. So one of my ex-colleagues, a family member of them, that he had a driving school, so he came to pick me up the one afternoon. You know, if you're young, you've got guts. I don't think I'll do it now, but he took me in peak traffic. But by that time, I drove, I think, about 2-3 years with my automatic car. So I was fine with the traffic, and that was in Cape Town. That's about 15 hours drive from here, but the roads are a bit quieter than here in Johannesburg. And I drove the bakkie with the manual bakkie, and it was okay. It wasn't too bad. So I was happy because I did about 3 or 4 sessions with the manual, and I felt comfortable because if I had to drive a manual car now in case of emergency, just in case, then I would be okay. So, but many years after that, I didn't drive it. I tried it again when my husband had he's got a manual car, and then I realized no, but my muscles are, the coordination isn't there anymore as it should be. And the muscle spasms quite a bit. So I just left it. And especially in Johannesburg, it's difficult with all the traffic. Sometimes in the other place I was in Cape Town, there's about 2 lanes, sometimes 3 lanes. But here in Johannesburg, on the N1, the highway, you get like 6 lanes altogether. So then it's easier to drive the automatic. And sometimes it can be challenging. So I can relate to what you're saying. So I think one tends to, instead of just focusing on your car, your driving, you're aware of the other people, and then you focus on that, and that's where the problem comes in. It makes it much more challenging, and then your muscle tightens up, and it's difficult to focus,
I think honestly, I think that might be what it is.
Exactly. I can tell you that's exactly.
There are other drivers.
You must forget about the drive, and it's easier said than done, especially when you've went through that where you struggle to just focus on your car, not the other person's car. But it's a mental thing as well. What you can do is, and it's just advice that I've taught myself, is just to, forget about the car. I'm in my car, focus in front of you, do what you have to do. The guy behind you has to do what he has to do.
Yeah, you can't control what others are going to do. You do want to be watching out because people will do things, and people can get hurt. But just as long as you're doing, it's like my mom always used to tell me, just stay in your lane and hopefully they will stay in theirs. But you can't.
That's what my dad says too.
But you can't do anything about it. You've got to do the safe thing for you, and and sometimes things do happen, and that's part of life,
But what I want to ask you, because I know I actually went to see quite a while ago. I actually was a bit concerned because I think some people with cerebral palsy, I don't know if it's only cerebral palsy, but they struggle with depth perception, if it makes sense what I'm saying. So I went to see the eye specialist, optometrist, to go for eye test, and she told me that my lens in my left side, I think I say gekrokkel paralytic for the other word for disability. It's just more a fun name. But so my left side, the lens, it's not round, it's oval, So that's why I think I sometimes struggle. I've got the glasses that I'm wearing now when I'm driving, but that's why I also sometimes struggle with a bit of a depth perception when I drive. Like when I have to pass a car, especially on the long road, and a car's coming towards us, then I wait until I can see it's a safe distance to pass the car. We might just go, you'll do it quick, because his reaction time is also faster than mine. So that's got to do, I think, with depth perception, but also I think balance and coordination. And sometimes
that is something I had to tell my dad this time, especially because in the times past he'd be like, "Why didn't you go? Why didn't you go? Like I would have went. And I said, "Well, I need to be aware of that. I am safe to go. Like you're the passenger. Let me." So this time he's been a lot better about like. Actually, he's a lot more quiet this time of just like letting me drive, and he'll have things to say here and there, but he is much better about like knowing that it's me that has to feel in control,
right?
As
Because
opposed to
your dad, I know your dad, Kyle, and he's got a lead foot. So yeah, he probably, which means he drives fast. That's what we say when you drive fast here in the U.S. is that you have a lead foot. But so he might feel comfortable, hitting the gas and going and turning or pulling out. But yeah, like Kyle said, like when you're the driver, you have to be the one. You have to feel like you're safe to go because you're not gonna, because you're not gonna get hit or you're not gonna pull out in front of somebody. Like it can't be somebody else, and you have to work from your comfort level and go from there.
Yeah, like my husband, he's got a disability, spina bifida, so he doesn't have like cerebral palsy with the spastic muscles and the stiffness. So he's got an advanced driving course that he did, so he's very quick with the driving. So he always told me like, okay, but you should have turned or you should have done that. But I drove many years before I met him. I've already driven, So now he comes and he wants to tell me how I must drive. But I taught myself because in our household, when my parents raised us, they raised me the same way as they did with my brothers. But when it came to driving, my dad was a bit protective. And I knew I had to be the one that basically had to break the ice, telling me, but I have to drive, So eventually he accepted it. I got my license and everything. And but most of the time I taught myself. So I had my ways of doing it, obviously legal way that it has to be on the road. But so I think it was about 6 years ago, my hubby, he fell with his crutches, so he hurt his arm. And he drove with one arm. So that's when he told me, you know what, now I can relate what you're going through because I'm struggling, he said. I still,
right.
So now he sort of relieves me, if he sees I can't pass a car or I didn't turn, he just let it be because now he's got a better understanding.
Right.
But I know what cars also, if you're not ready, then don't do it.
Well,
it will come with time, but you have to, when you get in your car, I know it's difficult at times, but you have to forget about the other cars.
Well, I appreciate the advice. I really do. It really.
And put your favorite music on when you go. Music that you will know that you'll feel relaxed and chilled. And even if you have to drive on your own for a while, that nobody's in the car with you because you need to work it out for yourself. Because if you're going to have somebody with you that's going to tell you, and you're not comfortable, it's not going to.
But that's part of driving here in the U.S. Actually, you have to have a licensed driver in the car with you while you're on a permit. That's before you get your actual license to drive. So that's part of our.
So you're on your permit still, hey? You don't have your license, am I right?
No, I do not have my license yet. So I'm required to have somebody with me. But that's what my mom will say, like you're not gonna, once you have your license, you're gonna be on your own. So she'll be like, stop listening to your dad and like just worry about you. So you're just kind of reaffirming that for me. So I appreciate it.
No, with us we call it, I think, a learners, and then that's before the license.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the maximum is about 2 years, and then after that you have to go for your license, actual driver's license. Otherwise, it expires basically. Then you have to go for your learners again.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it. So what I would suggest, yes, you don't have your license yet, so maybe put your favorite music on. And and try to forget. I know it's easier said than done. There's even certain roads here in Johannesburg that I don't drive because that's where the lanes comes together, the 6 lanes, and if there's trucks on the sides and buses now, it disorientates me completely. And sometimes, to reach the destination, I'll rather drive the back routes than the highway to get there because it's just easier.
Right. You have to go a way that you're comfortable. I hate to have to cut us off here, but because we're on the radio, we do have a little bit of a time limit. We are a little bit over, so I think what we're going to do is sort of wrap up today with some final thoughts, and then we can always have you back for part 2 when we have more time.
Yes, I would love to. You have been amazing. I just want to say that. So I would love to have you back.
Thank you.
Because you just seem so, like, you're so thoughtful and insightful. Like,
Thank you.
This has been
great.
I
learned a lot from you guys as well. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. This is because we've been kind of going every 2 weeks now, just because life's been a little crazy. So I do have to say to our listeners and viewers that we will be back. We will be skipping next week again because to celebrate the 4th, our town is doing it a week later. Don't ask me why. But our 4th of July festivities will be next week. So the plan is to be back July 17th. So be sure to tune in. We really appreciate you guys accommodating us as we kind of manage the show with what life throws at us. So we really appreciate it. Again, let us know whenever you want to come back. We will happily find a place for you, Marthe. And thank you to our listeners on Let Go Radio. Thank you to our viewers here on Facebook Live. Oh, thank you. We're happy you enjoyed.
Thank you so much. Take care and be safe.
Okay. You too.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Marthe? Is there anything else you wanted to say just as a last note before we get off? I wanted to give you a chance. Is there advice to those out there struggling with their disability? Anything you can say as a word of encouragement or?
Well, what I can say is don't compare yourself to other people but you might not have control over the muscle stiffness and the spasms or your disability, but you do have control over how you perceive yourself. That's my message.
We're gonna have to have you back because you just have those little drop the mic on us. So again, we really, we could just keep going and going, but we will have you back. And again, thank you to our viewers and our listeners. And let's remember to keep on living,
laughing, and
succeeding. And we'll see you next time, the 17th, everybody.
See everybody in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Marthe.
Pleasure. Bye.